and share with them the priorities or the needs that they see or they feel should be included within the budget for that year. And after that, we then see local governments coming up with budget framework papers, but also the central government coming up with a national budget framework paper. And that point also provides a platform for citizens to engage. And
citizens?
Yes, citizens. Yes, because then they can share their positions or their concerns on those budget framework papers, both at the subnational level, but also with Parliament. Yes. And later on, when the ministerial policy statements are released around the month of March, citizens also have a space to include or to comment on some of these policy statements and see that they're reflecting the needs of the citizens or what we need as a country. And after that, when the budget is passed, it then goes straight into implementation. So at some point, it's really hard to influence at that point, but citizens have spaces in those that I've mentioned earlier. Then when it comes to the revenue side, we've also seen Ministry of Finance trying to engage stakeholders to pick their minds, identify different policies that could come in place, maybe to close the loopholes, to improve tax administration, or even to see that more people are being captured into the tax bracket. So they often open up space still around October, November, to receive proposals from citizens. Yes, and as well as research, and those inform the tax bills that are tabled before Parliament in April. And in April, we often see Parliament calling citizens to present their positions on the bills. And those are some of the spaces in which the citizens can engage. However, I think there's been more clarity when it comes to the expenditure side and less when it comes to the revenue side, because the revenue side has remained quite closed. Yeah, and the time is not as ample as what is provided on the expenditure side. But yeah, for starters, it's a space. Yes.
Interesting. Yes, of course we're doing getting to understand the budget, breaking it down for the layman person out there. If you could be right there in any village, right down, not understanding some of these terms. Well, now away from that, there is the National Development Plan 3, and of course we're in phase 3. Yeah, NDP 3, phase 3. Now we want to understand in which way, because at least now the budget, which the way it is, now can't change. It is already out. We know, different money allocated for the different sectors. Of course, this time around it's program based. Yeah. Now to what extent is this budget influencing the National Development Plan 3 goals?
I think for starters, it's to recognize that the NDP 3 is meant to inform the budget, and we see that the theme definitely is also quite centered around the NDP 3. We've seen, we know that the NDP 3 there was a midterm review for the NDP 3. Yes, and we're now left with 2 years of implementing. And some of the things that were noted from the NDP 3, there was recognition that there was an increase in poverty levels. Within the country, and that there was need for increased investment in human capital development, but also the NDP 3 emphasized the need for government to invest increasingly in sectors like manufacturing, industrialization, especially for the next 2 years, to ensure that we achieve the goals that were set in there. Unfortunately, when you look at the budget, yes, we see that there was an increment in terms of the resources that were allocated to agro-industrialization, but there was a decline in the resources that were allocated to manufacturing. a decline of about 235 billion.
Okay.
But it's important for us to note that manufacturing is key, especially in terms of promoting exports.
Okay.
And government has often every now and again continuously mentioned the need to increase exports. So that means that if they're allocating less resources to exports, then that also hinders our efforts as a country towards development. But also looking at in agro-industrialization, we see that I think that's where you see entities like Ministry of Trade. You also see entities like UNBS. And these are entities that are key in terms of ensuring that as a country we can effectively trade. Because if UNBS is meant to look out for the standards that are the standards of goods within our country, but it's incapacitated due to limited resources, then it means as a country we're not able to meet standards to get exposed to the international markets.
Okay.
But it also means that some of the goods that will come into our country might not meet the required standards.
The required standards.
Yes. So it's critical then for government to look into such things and ensure that we can effectively trade as a country.
Okay.
Because that in a way is able to increase our revenue collections and ensure that we have more resources to allocate to other sectors like human capital development. And so on. Yes.
Okay, that is very important. I also looked into this aspect of sustainability. If we say that we are onto the move to increase the exports, that means, of course, investing more in agro-industrialization and manufacturing. Do we have the capacity to sustain that for over a period of 10 years, according to your look of things?
I think the first step is to take the step and invest.
You take a step.
You take a step and invest because we look at it as a cycle. But if you're able to invest, it means that you're increasing production. When you increase production, you also increase the number of people who can access jobs. Yes. Of course. Yeah. And when you're increasing the number of people who can access jobs, then it means that you're increasing earnings among the people. That means you have improved livelihoods, but also as a government, you're able to collect more taxes, both from the people as well as the productive sectors. And beyond, and then you see the cycle, like you're able to collect more and more revenue.
It works out automatically.
Yes, it works out. But if you don't invest, that means that you don't have industries. That means people don't have access to jobs. Okay. You can't tax a starving population. But also noting that I think even at the moment, the few companies that we have that are investing here, that are manufacturing, are benefiting from very lengthy tax holidays.
Lengthy tax holidays.
Tax holidays. So they often go without paying taxes. So if government does not invest, then that means we risk going through a continuous cycle of no revenue, increasing debt. You then have to impose more regressive taxes on the people. Absolutely. And that pushes them, it pushes them out of business, and it definitely brings the country to a crumble. Yeah.
Wow. And that is the cycle we likely, probably a loop we've been in for quite some time as a country, Uganda. Yes. Well, maybe just a brief, amongst the East African community countries, of course, agreed to read their respective budgets. That is on the same day. And of course, we want to understand how important is the harmonization of fiscal, the fiscal frameworks and looking at budgetary processes.
For us, first of all, harmonization is very important because one, it's us taking strides towards regional integration as the East African community. And when it comes specifically to fiscal harmonization, looking at budgets that we all have the same priorities that we're putting forward as East African countries. We all want to see increased manufacturing, increased agro-industrialization, and so it's one, all of us moving towards the same direction, but also when it comes to things like taxation, for instance, when you have a harmonized tax system, it means that you don't have unfair competition amongst
yourselves as the member states.
Yes, amongst member states, because when you have unfair competition, then it means that one country is going to probably suffer. Yes, one is going to suffer. Okay, not one, but probably one could suffer.
Of course, when you dominate, you tend to, there are practices which are unfriendly.
Yes, you tend to lose a lot. There's something that we've often termed as a race to the bottom, because which happens when countries are all trying to race to offer the lowest tax rates, all in the name of attracting foreign direct investment. So it's definitely something that would impact development, because countries will then not have enough resources. But you're having these companies investing, and it's likely that they are going to shift all their profits away back to their home countries. And but also looking at say issues to do with debt. We've often called for a common debt framework within the ESC. And this is just so as ESC countries, as we move towards integration, we then we are able to keep our debt manageable at manageable levels that will not impact our development as countries. That will ensure that we still have resources. Yes, available. Yes, so fiscal harmonization is definitely very important as a step towards regional integration, but also as a step towards ensuring that there is equitable growth across the region. Yes.
Yeah, and actually, I believe when we have that equitable growth, definitely, it also has an influence. It puts about your currency. Now, like the shilling, we've seen it with the euro, transacting that harmonization.
Yes.
And maybe finally, as this now will come back to Siatin, Uganda. For over the times you've been advocating for tax justice. A Ugandan out there would want to understand how important is this, and why even is it necessary?
Yes, so first, it's to understand what tax justice is. Tax justice for us means that the way the resources are collected, the way they're allocated, the way they're utilized is inclusive. And that when we collect, it means that everyone, depending on how much they earn, is able to contribute to the revenue basket. That when the resources are being allocated, they are being used to benefit the most vulnerable in society. That they're going towards, say, education, health, and ensuring that everyone is, brought to the same pace. When it comes to utilization, that while the resources have been allocated, when it comes to utilization, they are being utilized to do exactly what they were allocated to do. Yes. So for us, it's that you can actually use tax as a tool for development, that everyone will grow, that you bridge the inequality gap, and that it can be used to better the lives of others. Yes. So what we've done, right? Yes, so what we've been doing as Siatini, we've done quite a lot of mobilization for the citizens to understand the concept of tax justice, to appreciate the need for them to pay their taxes, but also for them to appreciate the need to call on their leaders to demand for accountability in terms of how the resources have been used. And we've seen this working, especially at the subnational level. We've seen local governments becoming more transparent, and the result, citizens also become more compliant. At the national level, we've also mobilized CSOs to engage in the annual tax process, to provide feedback, to provide recommendations or proposals to which then often inform the tax bills, and we've also been able to engage with Parliament as well, mobilizing citizens to engage in some of these campaigns against unfair taxes. And see to it that the tax system is really working for the people. It's definitely still a journey, but we are definitely happy that we see citizens increasingly engaging and
at least there is a milestone achieved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Grace.
Thank you.
Yes, and of course the discussion has been naturally rotating around the budget-related aspects, what you need to understand as a citizen down there. Of course, I know, like I said, quite lots of confusing aspects that are associated with that. But we shall be having more of these discussions for this entire month. Yes, and that is it. It's 7 minutes to the top of the hour. And of course, coming to the end of Smart Main's business this morning. Yes, my guest this morning was Grace Namugambe, Programs Officer, that is here in breaking down that. And now, don't forget to check us out on our channels. That is channel 372 on DSTV and channel 320 on GOTV. And you can also catch us on free to air and 4 TV on Twitter. Smart 24 TV official, that's on Facebook, and Smart 24 TV Live, that's on YouTube, where you will be able to get us at any part of the country that you will be at as we deliver to you the latest in international and local business related updates. 24.tv, that's on our website for further insights for any story that you really want to get an in-depth, as we shall be giving you that relevant information. Well, it's the 5th of May, it's a Monday. And of course, I'm about just signing out right now. But I would urge you to really be productive for the day and make sure that your priorities are set right today and the week at large. Good morning, till tomorrow. Thank you, Greg.